911, what's your emergency?
Please, Timothy's. The bear's still out there. I can hear it, eating. He recorded it, everything.
Stay on the line. Help is on the way.
It's too late. It's all on tape.
For 13 summers, Timothy Treadwell lived among Alaska's grizzlies. He believed he understood them. He named them. He trusted them. He thought love could replace fear. But in October 2003, that illusion was violently shattered as his camera rolled, lens cap on. The microphone captured 6 minutes of terror. Growls, screams, silence. Timothy and his girlfriend Amie were mauled to death by a bear he once claimed to protect. This wasn't an accident. It was nature reminding us of the truth. The wild can never be tamed. Timothy didn't die because he didn't care. He died because he believed he was safe. You're watching Terrifying Animals, where real stories of humans and nature collide. If this story shakes you, subscribe, like, and share, because the wild doesn't give second chances. And Timothy's final moments were a warning we all need to hear. The final call. In a small tent pitched deep within Alaska's Katmai National Park, far beyond the borders of civilization, two people, Timothy Treadwell and Amie Huguenot, were living their last moments. The weather was turning. The bears were restless. And as the rain began to fall, so did the illusion that had protected them for 13 long summers. The camera was on, but the lens cap remained sealed tight. What it didn't capture in image, it recorded in sound. 6 minutes of unrelenting terror. Growls, flesh tearing, screams that blurred into silence. And then nothing. This wasn't a case of someone caught off guard. This was a man who believed he could live with predators, who believed that trust could be stronger than instinct. He thought he understood the rules of the wild. He thought he was safe. But nature doesn't follow our scripts. It doesn't bend for belief, and it doesn't forgive mistakes. What happened that night wasn't a freak accident. It was the culmination of years of ignoring warning signs. A love story twisted into a lesson, one written in blood and recorded in real time. Welcome to Terrifying Animals. This is the true story of the grizzly man and his final, fatal mistake. The man who spoke to bears. Timothy Treadwell wasn't born wild. He became it. Born Timothy Dexter in Long Island, New York, he once dreamed of being an actor. But somewhere between auditions and disappointment, he drifted, searching for something bigger than himself. That something was Alaska. In 1989, after a near-fatal overdose and years of addiction, Timothy disappeared into the wilderness. He would later say that the bears saved his life, that living among them gave him purpose. But what he found wasn't just sobriety, it was obsession. For 13 summers, he camped in Katmai National Park, often alone, surrounded by the continent's most powerful land predators. He gave them names: Mr. Chocolate, the Grinch, and most famously, the bear he believed would never hurt him, the Big Guy. He filmed hours of footage. In it, he's seen whispering to the bears, standing mere feet from them without a weapon. His voice is soft, his eyes reverent. He wasn't afraid. That's what terrified people the most. Wildlife experts were alarmed. Park rangers begged him to stop, but Timothy refused. He believed he was special, that his love, his energy, his respect would shield him. "They're my friends," he said in one recording. "I would die for these animals." In the end, he did. But it wasn't for lack of warnings. It was because he believed, truly believed, that trust could replace caution, that emotion could rewrite instinct. He didn't want to study the bears. He wanted to be one of them. And when you blur the line between man and beast, sometimes the wild answers. A love deeper than fear. By the summer of 2003, Timothy wasn't alone anymore. Amie Huguenot, a quiet, thoughtful physician's assistant for Colorado, had joined him. Reserved by nature, Amie was the opposite of Timothy's wild, unfiltered energy. But she believed in him. Or maybe, more accurately, she believed in a version of him who loved something more than himself. Unlike Timothy, Amie was afraid of the bears. She never pretended not to be. She stayed back when they approached. She kept her voice low, measured. In footage from their final summer together, she often lingers behind Timothy, camera in hand, watching silently as he inches too close again and again. Many say she followed him out of love. But what she found in the Alaskan wilderness was far from romantic. She didn't name the bears. She didn't speak to them. She never forgot what they were. And yet, she stayed. They were scheduled to leave on September 26th. Timothy even filmed his goodbye. But something changed. He argued with an airline employee. He cursed at the Park Service. He was paranoid, convinced the world was against him, and that only the bears were on his side. So they stayed. One more week. One more chance for him to prove that he belonged. But this wasn't a story of a man protecting his partner from nature. It was the story of a woman who feared it, who knew better, and followed him into it anyway. In his final video logs, Timothy talks to the camera like an oracle, warning of poachers, of evil men, of betrayal. But he never speaks of a real danger. It wasn't man that was coming for them. It was the bear he didn't fear, the bear with no name. It was late in the season. October had settled into Katmai like a warning. The salmon were gone. The bears, once fat and satisfied, were growing restless. And Timothy had overstayed his welcome. The bear he most adored, Mr. Chocolate, had vanished downstream, already making his way to the hibernation dens. In his place, new bears had arrived. Strange ones. Older, hungrier, nameless. One in particular, Bear 141, was unlike the others. Large, scarred, unfamiliar. Timothy didn't know him. In his recordings, Timothy remarks on the stranger, his voice unusually tight. There's a rogue bear in the area. He's big, not part of my group. Don't like him. Don't trust him. But even then, he stays. On October 5th, park rangers believe Bear 141 began circling camp. There were fresh prints, heavy and wide, stamped into the muddy bank just outside Timothy's tent. He dismissed them, called a fluke. I'll protect them, he said, even from the bad bears. But this wasn't about protection. Timothy had built his identity on love. Love for animals, love for the wild, love for himself through their eyes. To leave now, when a true threat had arrived, would be an admission that love wasn't enough. That fear had a purpose, but the wild doesn't care about love. And Bear 141 didn't come seeking a friend. He came to survive. And Timothy, once so confident, so invincible, was no longer in control of the story. He was just another part of the food chain, the final tent. The wind whipped across Kaflia Bay as the light began to fade. It was October 5th, 2003, Timothy and Amie's final night alive. Inside their small blue tent, the camera was rolling. Not visually, the lens cap was still on, but the microphone captured everything. At 11:57 p.m., the tape begins. There's a distant rustle, heavy breathing. Then, the unmistakable low grunt of a bear. Timothy's voice breaks the stillness, tight with urgency. Get out of here, bear. Go away. But the bear doesn't go. It's not afraid. Seconds later, chaos erupts. The sounds that follow are not just terrifying. They are primeval. A guttural roar, thrashing screams. Timothy's voice is high, panicked, pleading. Get out of here. Get out of here. Then silence. Then Amie. Her voice is trembling, filled with pure horror. Play dead. Play dead. But it's too late. The bear has already begun to kill. Timothy screams again, one final, blood-curdling sound. And then, only the bear remains. For 6 minutes, the tape runs. There is no rescue, no weapon, no escape, just the wet, awful sound of feeding. Amie's voice returns, small, shaking. She is trying to fight, banging pots, screaming for the bear to leave. But it circles back. She is alone, and soon she is gone. This was no quick tragedy. It was prolonged, personal, intimate, nature unfiltered, and it was all captured by the microphone of a camera left running in the dark. What Timothy thought he understood was gone. In that tent, on that night, love met instinct, and instinct won. The discovery. The next morning, October 6th, 2003, the sky over Kaflia Bay was eerily clear. A pilot named Willie Fulton arrived by float plane to pick up Timothy and Amie. It was a routine retrieval until it wasn't. What he saw that day would haunt him forever. The camp was silent. No sign of movement. No greeting. Then he spotted the bear. Massive, still lingering. And nearby, scattered pieces of torn tent, a cooking pot, a backpack, and bones. Willie radioed for help, voice shaking. Rangers rushed in. They found the remains quickly. Timothy's partially buried body, Amie's nearby, both ravaged beyond recognition. The bear was still close, protective, aggressive. It was shot on sight. In its stomach, they found human remains. It had stayed. It had fed. Among the wreckage was a video camera, its lens cap still on, the battery drained. But when investigators reviewed the audio, they froze. It was all there. The attack, the screams, the moment death arrived. They debated releasing the recording, but ultimately did not. Only a few people would ever hear it. Among them, Werner Herzog, who would later describe the tape as something so horrific it should never be heard by anyone. And yet, the microphone told the truth. The tent wasn't just a shelter that night. It became a tomb, a place where a dream died and reality roared back in. Authorities recovered what they could. The bodies were cremated, the ashes scattered in Katmai, where Timothy had once said he wanted to be buried if he ever died among the bears. That wish came true, but the fantasy that he was safe, that these animals loved him as he loved them, that died too. The tape, the audio recording, 6 minutes and 13 seconds. That's all it took to dismantle a lifetime of belief. The video camera had never been turned off. When the bear attacked, it was rolling, not filming. Its lens cap was still on, but the microphone was live. The sound it captured was not just horrific, it was primal. First, rustling, a low growl. Then Timothy's voice, panicked. "Get out of here! Go away!" And then, the attack. Roars, thrashing, screams, bones breaking. Timothy's voice turned from command to desperation. "Hit the bear! Hit the bear!" Amie, terrified, screamed from behind the tent's wall. For over 6 minutes, she listened as the man she loved was torn apart. She cried out, pleaded, banged pots, helpless. Then silence. For a moment, there's only the sound of wind. Footsteps, sniffing. Then it happens again. The bear returns. Amie's screams pierce the cold, Alaskan air. Her death was not recorded, only her terror. The tape ends. When authorities heard it, they wept. One ranger vomited. Another refused to ever speak of it again. And Herzog, the filmmaker who listened through headphones, refused to play the audio for his audience. "You must never listen to this tape," he said. "It is the sound of a man being destroyed." Yet in that destruction, something was revealed. Timothy's belief that love alone could tame the wild was undone by the wild itself. That tape was never meant to be heard, but it became the brutal echo of a dream turned nightmare. The forest remembers. The warning. The tragedy of Timothy Treadwell did not end with his death. It echoed. In the weeks that followed, debate erupted across the country. News outlets dissected every second of his footage. Wildlife experts and survivalists weighed in, some calling him brave, others branding him delusional. But beneath the media frenzy was something far more important. A question we had all avoided for too long. Where is the line between admiration and obsession? Timothy's footage, over 100 hours, showed a man slowly dissolving into the wilderness. His language shifted, his posture, his tone. He stopped saying the bears. He started saying my friends, my family, my protectors. But the wild isn't family. It isn't a sanctuary. It's a kingdom. And Timothy forgot that he was only a visitor. His final moments weren't just about one man and one bear. They were a confrontation between fantasy and reality, between what we want nature to be and what it truly is. Timothy believed love could erase instinct. Nature reminded him it couldn't. The park rangers still tell his story. They don't do it to scare. They do it to teach. You respect the bear, one said. You never think you're one of them. Because the wild doesn't offer second chances. It doesn't care how long you've stayed, how pure your intentions were, or how much you loved it. It only knows survival. Timothy's story is not a warning against passion, but against blindness. Against the fatal belief that danger disappears just because you mean no harm. In the end, nature didn't betray Timothy. It just behaved exactly as it always has. Unforgiving, beautiful, wild. If this story moved you, if it left you breathless or shaken, don't let it fade into silence. Like, share, subscribe, because the truth is still out there, waiting. Thank you for watching. Timothy Treadwell's life was more than a tragedy. It was a mirror, a reflection of our desire to connect with something ancient, powerful, and untamed. But his death was a brutal reminder. Reverence is not the same as safety. The wild doesn't bend to love. It demands respect. If this story shook you, don't turn away. Like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more true stories where nature and humanity collide. Because every view, every voice keeps these lessons alive, and the wild is still watching.